Diets are as varied as the individual. They can be healthy and provide the nutrition we need, or they can deprive us of vital foods. Which diet is right for your situation? We weigh in on those questions as the doctors are on call tonight. Funding for On Call is provided in part by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On Call, starting its 11th year of opening doors for important medical information. And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota. Additional funding provided by Dakota Care, Regional Health, the Brookings Health System, Dr. Mark Bubach with Dakota Allergy and Asthma, the South Dakota American College of Physicians, and Swiftel Communications. Closed captioning for On Call is provided by the generous support of Avera, the Brookings Health System, and Fishback Financial Corporation.
Hello and welcome to On Call Television. Tonight we are talking about how the food we eat affects our health. Of course, this topic is jam-packed with different opinions and based on many different theories, some supported by solid and reproducible scientific proof, and some with little or no scientific support at all. We have two wonderful guests tonight, both with unusual perspectives. Kevin Weiland, MD, is an internist who is a graduate of the Sanford School of Medicine at the University of South Dakota. He trained in internal medicine at the University of Wisconsin Hospital and Clinics in Madison, Wisconsin. He's the author of The Dakota Diet. He developed the Dakota Diet as a way to realistically address nutrition and health with his patients. He practices in Rapid City, South Dakota, and would love to sell you that book.
Thank you.
You bet. Amiel Redfish, a PA, got his undergraduate degree at USD and several other colleges. His physician assistant training was done at the Mariposa County Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona, through the Indian Health Service. During his early years, he had experience as a lab and x-ray technician before he was to become a PA. And he was in that first tier in this country to become a physician's assistant. But his training first began really with his grandmother's teachings about traditional American Indian herbs and medicine ways. I mean, he's the guy who is not only a real person of medicine in modern times, but has a link to the history in this area. Now to our audience. I suspect that you all eat, often more than once per day. Perhaps you have a question or two about the food you need to use to nurture your body. Please call in your questions at 1-888-376-6225 or email us at oncalltelevision.com and push the questions button. We'll do our best to answer your questions on air, and it's those questions that can make this very interesting, unusual show the best it can be. So please give us your calls. Welcome, gentlemen, for joining us on this topic of diet. It was, we've been waiting to do something about your book and your diet and your interests, Kevin. And Amiel and I were talking the other day about some dietary issues, and I said, you know, that would be a nice combination, particularly since your diet book has a lot to do with American Indian ways. Yep. And here is a real American Indian. So we're happy about that.
Yeah, anything I eat is Indian food.
Is it? That's right. It becomes Indian food. That's right. So, but let's start with you, Kevin. You're an internist.
Yep.
Your practice is what? Like?
Loaded. It's really busy.
And you do geriatrics?
Well, yeah, a combination of everything. You know, I really have had a great time when the prevention of disease. I've been in the ICU, I've been in the ER, I was a paramedic, I've been in that pre-hospital setting. But
you were a paramedic?
I was a paramedic.
Where was that?
In Chicago. Yeah,
a lot of gunshots.
Very little stress. Very little stress. But you know what I really enjoyed is taking someone and not putting them on a medication and seeing them change, seeing them legitimately change. If they're motivated and they find the right doctor, they can get this thing done. We can take people off of medications just by 2 things: eat less and exercise. Those 2 things, these people will lose weight.
And you know, I would contend that it isn't necessarily the fact that they need to lose weight. If they eat less and they exercise more, even if they don't lose weight, that's not the golden fleece. Getting off the medicines,
Correct.
Controlling the diabetes, blood pressure coming down, all those happen without even losing the weight.
Right, but if you lose weight,
That's another story.
it is another story. But most of these people have sleep apnea. That can sometimes be corrected. So
There's a lot of reasons.
a lot of reasons to lose weight.
So, and you went into internal medicine because?
I love primary care. I think it's the wave of the future. With the Affordable Care Act, there's going to be a lot of people needing us.
Yeah.
And with the baby boomers heading to Medicare, oh boy,
Here it
Dr.
comes.
Holm, look out.
Yep. Now, Amiel, I remember one time I said, Amiel, I need to interview you. This was like 10. I need to interview somebody who was a real medicine man. You know, a traditional medicine man that's on a reservation out there practicing the traditional medicine ways, or medicine person ways. And you looked at me and you said, well, most of them are kind of often, you know, what the real medicine man guy, I have to say to you is, it's me. And it was like that's right, because not only did you learn the traditional ways when you were young, but you have taken on the modern ways and you have the comparison. So what does that comparison, that interacting story look like?
Well, what you two just got through talking about is my one thing that has come to me, and one of the big things right now in medicine is preventive. So we have to promote the diets from the start, and what you eat is what you are. And so if you look back, and one of the things, I guess this is all me now. I'm not being sponsored by anybody, so it's all me and my opinion. But I'm diabetic. And about 30 years ago, I wasn't feeling good, so I ran a blood sugar, and there I was, 160. And I went, oh my God.
You've got it.
I got it. But then I checked it a couple hours later, and I was 70. So now I knew I was, you know, in the hypoglycemic range. So I went home, opened the refrigerator, looked at the food I had in there, and I went, okay, now how do I make a meal out of what I got here? And that was an epiphany to me, that what I had been telling my patients, you can't have this, you can't have, but I really wasn't telling them, here is the way to do it. I since then have become a real advocate of what Dr. Weiland does here, is trying to work with the different people. Presently, I work amongst the Danes and the Norwegians.
Yeah, yeah.
They have their own brand of food, but that's what they are, you know. And if you look at it, their average cholesterol is 230. That's their average. So if I can get them to 230 without any medications or anything, within their own cultural diet, because they learn to cook from grandma, and grandma learned to cook from grandma, and grandma learned to cook from grandma. Yeah. So it's there, and you have to talk to them. You know, it's, well, you do it. You know, when you do your preliminary history on some of the, well, anybody, when we do our preliminary history, you do the social history with your mother and father. Well, Dad died, he had a heart attack when he was 55. So my big question there was, what are you doing different than your father did so you won't die at 55? You'd be surprised how much they haven't done anything different. So that's where you have to go to work at it. Yeah. You want to be preventive.
Yeah.
And it was the same way when I worked on a reservation. It was the same way. I had to work on the diet. What could we do? Things were limited. What was in the households? In the days I worked back there, they had commodities. How do I work with the commodities? How do I work with the food stamps? How do you do this as a preventive? How do you get the food? is a thing there. And one of my questions that I always have is food medication? And does food ruin your medications? And so we can get into that later, but you know, that's the thoughts. You know, we prevent it.
Well, I would say in response to both of your comments, I think we have way too many medicines out there. Many people could do just as well or better with the non-medicinal ways of treating their illnesses. And we as physicians find it really too easy, and it's quicker just to write out the prescription, goodbye. And it starts with antibiotics, and it goes to cholesterol-lowering drugs, and it includes hypertensive medications.
But we have to have a goal. I mean, for us to get paid, sometimes we have this meaning or these goals that we have to have for our diabetics, for our blood pressure patients. They have to have a number. They have to have a number, and then you get rewarded. You don't get rewarded for sitting there and talking diet with your patients.
No, and I think that's a bad thing in our society.
It's a bad thing.
You're telling me you don't like it.
You.
I don't like it at all
either. I don't like
either.
it either. No.
It's not good. I don't think it brings good medicine.
No, not at all.
It's been promoted by maybe the pharmaceutical industry, or maybe, who's promoting this?
Well,
that was one of the nicest things, you know. In my last 6 years of practice, I owned and ran my own practice, and I'll tell you, there's some insurance company came in and told me, well, if you do this and you do this and you do this and you document this and this, we'll give you more money. I told them where they could take it and shove it.
Yeah.
This is between me and my patient. I'm making it. I'm satisfied where I'm at. I don't need all this. I want to keep that out of my practice.
I want to spend a little bit more time on this very issue of protocols that have been given to us by, I'm not sure whom.
For-profit industry.
Yes, and these protocols that are laid out in front of us are now being used to evaluate the quality of our medicine, so that we're getting a report card. Now, when you look at report cards of doctors and PAs and people who are practicing medicine, think about it. These are report cards that are probably not a really good, accurate measurement of the quality of the care that's being provided. Some of it might be, but not all of it. And some of it might be a reflection of how tough of a patient are we willing to take, or am I only going to just put in my practice the patients who actually do what I tell them to do?
Right.
Or am I going to take care of a really sick person who's non-compliant?
And they will fall through the cracks. We are going to discriminate against these people. We don't want insurance companies to discriminate against them, but unfortunately, how the payer system is, we might be discriminating against these people because the numbers aren't going to look good. No, and we're going to have a bad report card.
It's an easier deal to just lower that number with that blood pressure pill, or that, and then you get a good grade.
That's right.
And it's faster. Somebody makes some money.
Yep.
Patient got an answer. They come to me. I remember a patient coming to me the other day. This is about 3 years ago. Just the other day, and he said, my brother said, well, you've gained all this weight, and you've had this problem. And your number is too high, why don't you just take a pill for it? The doctor's telling me I need to exercise and lose weight. He said, just take the pill.
Exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the ingrained thing with patients nowadays. There's a pill for everything.
They expect it.
They expect it.
It's wrong.
Right.
And I've got insurance that'll pay for it.
I have goes for pain relief too. But you know, we're off the topic a little bit of diet. Not much.
Very important. Very important.
Okay, now this is at the side of my vision. You brought this, you handed this to me, and I looked at this, and I was thinking this is OSHA root, and that is at the Sioux Trading Post in Rapid City. Tell me about OSHA root.
I just brought that because you asked us to think of different topics to go through tonight. By the way, I'm going to tell the audience I did open my big mouth, and he put me on the show and on the spot. And so one of the things that I got to thinking and have worked out with myself is foods that help, foods that are medicines, foods that can do different things. Also, now we're big into the organics and so on and so forth. So one of the things that I use is it's the name of its OSHA root. We call it bear root.
Bear root.
If you take the Lakota name, it's bear root. Bear root is a medication for pain. We use it mainly, and it works very well for, and not being different here, but females that have migraine headaches, you know, they have more propensity for migraines. Everybody has migraines with females. This works very well with them. And so this is what I use for pain when I can't get any place with every other thing. We're trying to keep people off of opiates and so on and so forth. So this is what I've been using.
What's the active ingredient, do you know?
It's in the parsnip family. So, you know, if you start looking, one of the things I'm doing now, since I'm retired and got a little more time, is I'm looking at foods that are medicines. The parsnip family, this is in the parsnip family.
Okay.
Parsnip family can help you with pain, along with the capsaicins in the peppers and stuff. The other use for this, in a good strong quotient for it is it'll cause an abortion in young people. It's after morning pill.
Oh, morning after.
Wow.
Morning after pill.
Well, those are interesting.
Yeah.
Haven't heard of that, and I'm not saying anything about it. So
wow.
But that's been used that way.
And I think catnip is in the parsnip family.
Yes.
And cats love it.
Mm-hmm.
They are holly jolly. They're pain free.
They're
high.
Yeah. Is that really true?
Catnip, yeah.
They do get that.
My
way.
cats.
They love the catnip.
Yeah.
See, I'm a dog.
I don't
person.
recommend that. I prefer dogs.
I've never heard dog nip. Have you got any idea on that one?
I think my dog got into it, but
Bad joke. Here is a call from Sioux Falls. Please discuss use and benefit of golden seal root and oregano oil.
Wow.
Ever heard of either one of them?
I think oregano oil would be just an awesome thing to cook with. And to choose that to flavor up asparagus would be phenomenal. You know, I'm sure that has the monounsaturated properties like olive oil, like a lot of these fancier oils have, and that will help with the cholesterol profile. And in particular, that LDL, that bad cholesterol, that carrier protein that lays the cholesterol on the artery, will go down. And I see HDLs go up with olive oil, and that's proven. So this is probably pretty similar to that.
Let's talk about the Mediterranean diet. That's hit the news of late.
Right,
you know,
right,
and
right.
they're making a big fuss about it. I think. I beware of news reports that say, well, they had to stop it because they found that it was so good that they didn't want to go on with the rest of it. And the answer I'm saying is that's just the best way you can promote anything. We had to stop the thing. And so my sense is that this was, a lot of this may have been promoted by the olive oil companies. And I mean, I'm suspicious.
Right.
Yeah, so I do a lot of reading, and the first thing you do is when you read something, who wrote this? Who supported this research?
Where did that research come from?
Where did that research come from? And then you have to temper that. Anything you read, you have to temper it. And how much do you believe? And yes, maybe there's some good in here, but you have to sift out the wheat from the shaft when you do this.
Well, you know,
and the Mediterranean diet is an old diet.
Well, yeah, I mean, that basically, when I read the Mediterranean diet, when I looked at what's in that diet, the Lakota people had the same thing.
It's really very close to it. Like
Absolutely.
you said, it's except that it wasn't salmon.
Salmon, the salmon of the prairie, the buffalo.
No, it's the buffalo instead.
That's one of the things I said. Are all foods good for all people?
Yeah.
No.
No.
No. In America, we're a melting pot, so we've kind of mixed up the genes, and we got a lot of mutts, especially if your ancestors came from overseas many hundreds of years ago.
There's a mix.
There's a mix, but then there's pretty much, we've stratified things too. We've got the little Italys and the little there and the little this and the little Chinatown.
You have a little French in you, don't you? You've got a little French. What do you have?
German and Norwegian.
Yeah, and I'm half Swede, and the other is hound dog.
Yes.
You know, Western European,
Western
I guess.
European.
I don't know. Who knows?
But yeah, you know, they've all got their specific cultural diets. And one of the things I've done is I have a whole collection of cookbooks on all the different ethnic foods.
Yes.
And the ethnic foods diabetic preparations. So
that's a good thing to do, because you've like you said, you really need to be addressing the ethnicity needs, because a diet that's going to work for you is one that you will actually eat forever.
And consume, right.
Yeah, yeah, that's true too. But also you're genetically inclined to. You know, Native Americans are lactose intolerant as an overall statement.
Yeah, 80% or something.
Something like that. Yeah, you know, that's why Leif Erikson damn near got killed a long time ago, because he gave the Native Americans milk and they all got sick, so they were going to scalp him the next day when he first landed up in the northeastern part of the country.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't
My
heard
grandpa.
That. Yeah. Is that right? Are you related?
I have no idea.
You're,
No,
of
Mom's
course
listening.
you're related.
Mom's listening. She'll clarify that. She went, yeah. We have,
Yeah, sure. You know, what are all these Indians doing? You know? So we have from Brookings, what is the healthiest foods that busy college students can eat as they run from class to class? They really don't have time to go home and cook a good meal.
That's a.
and all of our camera people are going, what's the answer?
That is great, because I had nephews and nieces that come to school here. They love this campus. They all had that, what is it called, that freshman 15-pound that they gained that first year?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's the Nick's burgers, yeah, that's
yeah,
it.
well, no, yeah. So that's what it is. It's just fast food, and really it is. But it's really, I think it's more the calories and the amount of calories that these students obviously consume. That's the problem.
Well, and we have 14 pizza places in this town because people like to eat pizza,
right.
and that's so caloric.
And easy to eat.
Easy to eat.
Easy to prepare, cheap.
Go.
Yep.
And the other part of it is that I don't think kids realize that apple or that orange in between class is really the perfect thing.
Yep.
Nuts, fruits.
A handful of mixed nuts.
Yeah, and you know, and that fat in that nut, it will slow that appetite down. You feel full, and it does not empty the gut fast, right. So you have all this full feeling for a long time.
Of course, a peanut is not a nut. A peanut is a legume. So you want to, I like the mixed nuts,
yeah, me too.
the deluxe mixed nuts without peanuts.
Almonds are great.
I love almonds.
Pistachios are great.
And there's a data that suggests that it's the copper in the nuts that carries with it the cardiac benefit.
Right. It's in my book. You read my book.
Yes, there you go. And so, all right, now we had a picture of the food pyramid plate. I want to look at that. Do we have that up already? There it is. Let's respond to, this is what the governments, they changed the pyramid and they went to a plate. And they suggest, oh, it's a balanced diet, isn't it? It's a mixture of everything that we have. And I guess, make your comment.
Well, I just saw another one just like this on the internet here a couple of weeks ago. They called it the Norwegian pyramid. It was 3 bottles of beer with a brat on top of it.
No. Bad.
You know, I think they got a lot of cues from like Dr. Sears, Barry Sears, the Zone Diet.
Yeah.
And he goes by 2/3 fruits and vegetables. He doesn't care what you have, but make it a fruit and a vegetable, and then 1/3 protein. It was a very simple thing to do. And then basically eat less. Make that plate smaller. Make that plate smaller.
That's my comment. When I went to school and went through the course in nutrition, the main thing I took out of that was you can eat what you regularly eat, but if you want to lose weight, you have to take and write down for a week. How much did I eat? I had a handful of nuts, I had a handful of this, etc.
Yeah.
And at the end of the week, you go through that list and cut 1/4 of it out, you'll start losing a pound a week to that was their suggestion to me. So no matter what actor's name, what person's doctor's name, or whatever you put on the diet, that's the principle. Reduce
the quantity.
Yeah.
I cannot emphasize enough, those who are out there thinking about trying to lose weight, the first thing to do is a diet diary. Just write down everything you eat for 3 days and count the calories that are in that diet. Just do that. Yep. That's a wonderful learning experience.
And what happens to that weight? Where does that go? Have you ever, patients ever ask you, so I lost weight, where did it go?
Yeah.
It went into the air, you burned it off, carbon dioxide.
Yes.
So you're a carbon sequesterer, be a carbon emitter. Increase your footprint, lose weight.
Lose weight.
Like that idea? That's a new topic there.
That's a pretty good.
I know.
So you use the word sequester. That's
that's tomorrow. Yeah. And if that happens, the USDA is going to get cut back, and we're going to have a poor food supply. We're going to have a food safety issue.
Yes, we are.
So get it together, boys and girls in Wisconsin.
There's
in
another
Washington,
one I
D.C.
had here, food safety.
There we go, food safety. All right. Modern, highly processed food affects our bodies and general health in different ways than the food we ate 100 years ago. There are a few people who are trying to encourage at least a partial return to the older diet.
There's been quite a bit of change historically. We've gone from a hunter-gatherer society to a complete modern society where life is easy, food comes relatively easy. The difference is that our physiology is still the same. Our cultural beliefs and practices and behaviors are relatively the same, but what's changed is the availability of food. So we've come to a place of abundance, we've come to a place where there's a variety of food that has not been available in the past. We're talking about food that is higher in fat, higher in salt, higher in sugar, higher in carbohydrates. Traditionally, our diet consists of mainly protein with a supplementation of fruits and roots and herbs that are gathered. Also, traditionally we've done some trading and also some gardening where we've been able to get squash, beans, corn, and some of the traditional foods. Those foods were a supplement to the main diet of protein. So when we're teaching about the traditional diet, we try not to focus specifically on, well, there was more protein, but also for the fact that we did eat less and we ate less often, and we also had a higher rate of exercise where we were often more active. We had to actually go out and hunt and search, so there was more calorie expenditures during the day. So we compare that diet that we had in the past with the lifestyle that we had in the past as well. I know Kibbe Conti, she is a dietitian, a Native American dietitian who's created a medicine wheel intervention, and that was specifically for diabetes patients. And she took the traditional ways of eating and she incorporated that into kind of presenting that diet to diabetes patients, and there was significant improvement in their weight loss, and it kind of goes to show that Native Americans do respond to that typical diet that we had in the past. They're seeing their grandparents and even their parents, as young as 30, 40 years old, going into diabetes and having consequences of diabetes with dialysis and kidney transplants and all of the consequences that come from that. So youth are really embracing. There's a lot of diabetes prevention programs that are run through either tribes or the Indian Health Service. Many of these are targeting youth because that's where the changes can be made, and in particular, increase of exercise and change of diet. The efforts are just beginning, and there's an opening for so much more to be done. I know on the Rosebud Reservation there is a diabetes prevention program that focuses its attention specifically on youth, and they have a lot of activities that involve youth where they're doing walks and runs, activity day events, and they also do a lot of education prevention outreach programs. They also go into the schools and work with the schools to give information and to also provide opportunities for activities for the students, looking back onto our past and saying how can those past lifeways help us to continue on into the future, and how can we better ourselves through looking back at the past.
Thank you, Natasha. And she's got to be somebody you probably delivered. I think that's your...
I delivered so many kids way back then, and I was looking at her age.
She had
just somebody I saw a long time ago.
You knew her family.
I know her family,
of
yes.
teachers. Please call in your questions about tonight's topic. Call 1-888-376-6225 or email us on calltelevision.com. Put the questions button. Thank you for the calls. Thank you. Keep them coming. All right, so let's talk about, one of the things she talked about was the feast and the famine. I mean, you think about it, for the thousands and thousands of years before recorded time, people would live on very little, then they would catch an antelope or eat a bunny rabbit and have a tuber, and then it gets cold and then they don't eat for a while. So there's feast and famine. Comments about that?
When you fast, when you don't eat, when you reduce your calories, period, the foods that we typically take in it goes, the fats in particular, it breaks down to acetone. The acetone is used in the liver to make cholesterol. Now that's how it's produced. When you reduce your calories, that acetone or that substrate that helps in the liver to make cholesterol is actually used for energy. You lower your cholesterol just by fasting. And it is amazing to see what happens to people who are on a starvation diet. I mean, they can drop their cholesterol significantly just because they're using that substrate for energy to keep moving.
People talk about the oxidative load. The whole theory is that you can prevent early aging and diabetes and so on by antioxidants. And the theory was if you took a pill, vitamin E, you could prevent oxidation. But the real oxidative load is too much food.
Exactly.
It's calories.
And you have inflammation going on at the same time, and we see an epidemic of inflammatory diseases on the Rosebud and in Pine Ridge. It's called rheumatoid arthritis. It's called asthma. It's called psoriasis.
It's called steatohepatitis, non-alcoholic hepatitis from obesity.
Hepatitis, yep.
So there's a terrible danger about obesity that we don't understand, that we're learning the bad news.
Well, we put corn syrup in everything. Just a couple weeks ago, there was an article out that corn syrup, which is in everything. I mean,
because it's cheap.
It's cheap. You eat a salad, it's full loaded with corn syrup as the basis of sweetener. That it actually is it makes you want to eat more. It increases your appetite.
You can't eat but just one. You got to keep going.
More. Yeah, and that, you know, they always say, well, you see the studies, sugar is sugar, corn syrup is sugar, sugar is sugar. No, but there's a little difference here.
Sucrose,
we're starting to realize
the
that
whole thing.
mistake. Yeah.
And when you drive up to a gas station, you see a bottled water for $1.50 or $1.25, 12 ounces. Then you can see a 64-ounce Coke for like 60 cents, 80 cents. That's ridiculous.
What is that all about?
How much money are you going to put in for a water that should be free? Is now $1.20.
It's $1.20. I think the idea of fasting once a week, or at least half fasting, I got to say that carefully, but that you would cut back one day. I mean, let it be Friday. Maybe that's the day that you just don't eat through the whole day.
Right.
And maybe when the sun sets, you celebrate and begin the weekend.
Yeah.
Comment. All right, here is how beneficial is the Mediterranean diet? What do you think? Let's look at the Mediterranean diet picture that we have. It's lots of vegetable oil. It has lots of nuts. It talks about fish, and it doesn't have a lot of red meat. It doesn't have a lot of other oils. It's basically a different oil than what we normally eat. And it doesn't have the corn syrup.
Right.
No.
Okay, so
There's bread in it.
100 years ago,
Yeah.
1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago if we were here, the foods that were produced had this ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Omega-6 is the pro-inflammatory fat, and the bad fat. Well, actually, you know, it's not bad to have inflammation. If you cut yourself or you have an infection, you need to stop bleeding, you need to respond to pain. This is inflammation. The yang, or the opposite, is the omega-3. 100 years ago, that ratio was like 4, maybe 2 to 1. Now we see, because of our processing of our foods, and that's what the Mediterranean diet is just totally the opposite of. My diet that I base that on is totally opposite of that. But we see, because of the processing of foods, a huge load of inflammatory fats, omega-6 fat, corn oil, everything you can see like that, and we have very less omega-3. In fact, when you put a steer or a cow into a feedlot and you slaughter it later on, the feedlot drops that omega-6 or omega-3 pretty significantly, and we see the saturated fat go up.
It's the corn that in their diet?
It's the corn in their diet.
The ruminants don't need corn. And the same thing with egg. That's where we got our omegas from, is from eggs, because the chickens are out running around eating bugs, and they got it out of the protein out of the bugs. But now we grow them in a cage about their size.
And give them corn oil. And
corn oil.
Yeah,
and so
candy bars to cows.
So we're reversing that omega again. So we're onto a whole new complication in foods, is the processing to feed the masses. And how good is it?
And that's why the Mediterranean diet fits in line with with the diet of
kind of a thing.
Exactly.
Let's talk about eating or shopping for range cattle and range chicken. Are we pushing the grocers to bring it to us? Can we find it? Is it there? What about slow food, and what about farmers markets?
Believe it or not, Walmart has that ability to get grass-fed buffalo, grass-fed meats. They have it in our stores in Rapid City.
If you push for it, they'll get it.
If you push for it, they'll get it.
Just call Dan, he'll get it for you.
Yep, that's it. And I've been watching for it. I've pushed for it as well.
And the internet is loaded with a lot of people who just would love to sell you, some buffalo.
I'll tout our grocery store in town here.
Yes.
They use
Hy-Vee.
The Hy-Vee. Okay, I didn't know if you could say it or not.
Say it.
But I buy my meats at Hy-Vee because they have the amount of meats, and you can pick. If you look in the meat, I don't buy it over here where it's already done. I buy it there where they package it up for me. I can look and choose my chunk of meat. I choose the ones that are very lean, and those are supposed to be mostly grass-fed. They're not fattened from the amana.
Now we've got a bunch of questions. I want to dive into it, but I want to sell your book a little bit, would you? I mean, because I'm not doing that.
Oh, heck, okay.
Okay, all right.
Hold it up.
So tell us about this book. I have looked and read that book. I have read that book.
I know. You know all about the good fats and bad fats. So when my patients wanted a diet, and I researched diets. I used to write a column for the Rapid City Journal, and I started researching about nutrition. And when I looked at the Mediterranean diet, I just, boom, right in my backyard are these grass-fed animals, buffalo. And I go, this is it. I started researching the good fats and bad fats, and it took me right down, and I coined the term the Dakota diet. It essentially is just the grass-fed animals, whole fruits and vegetables. What separates me from the Paleolithic diet is there are good grains out there. Not everyone can have grains, but their grains are good in calories. It's a necessary evil, unfortunately, for some people to have, but they need the calories. And in the whole history of the earth, of the world, we're making the best breads because of the grains we have, and I am not going to go to my grave saying I did not eat that. I'm going to try it.
So there are times to use grains, but let's use those not so processed
white bread. Make them whole, make them complex carbohydrates.
One quick lesson. So if you really look at what is in the calories of the food that we eat, it's only three things. It is oil or fat. It is carbohydrate, which is sugar, which is bread, which is mostly pasta, and it's sugar. I mean, it's carbohydrates, the white.
Fiber. Fiber's a carbohydrate.
But yes, it is. So it's not all bad. But and the third thing is protein, which is meat or in some breads and some, nothing is pure. But there's only three things. And if you cut out the carbs, you're going to have protein and fat. Well, people who rebel against that say the fats are bad, so you only have protein. Well, if you can't eat meat without some fat, and let's face it, it's the balance that matters.
You got to have nicotinic acid from meat in order to process some of the other nutrients that you need. It's a balance. And of course.
All right, look at let's look at our graphics up here on the high carb, low carb. Just run through them, and we'll respond. What do you have first? This is the low carb diet. Mostly it's meat. There is cheese. It's dairy. It's oil. But it's not no carb. And the problem with a low carb is no fruit.
Right. Mm-hmm. And also, do you want gout? Uric acid, a byproduct of protein metabolism. Do you want constipation? Very little fiber. And these are the big problems that I see when people that are trying to restrict a very important thing, carbohydrate.
Let's do the next picture. This is the Food Giant Guide Pyramid. This is the old pyramid. This is the low-fat diet. So what it ends up is a lot of cereals on the bottom with fruits and vegetables. Let's go to the next one. You have any more?
That was Dean Ornish's diet in the 1990s.
That's the Dean
Ornish, yep.
I think the bottom line in all of these is, in my own mind, I think if we can eliminate anything with the corn sugar, it's a great idea. If we can cut back on the processed carbohydrates, that's a reasonably good thing.
Processed food.
The processed food in all.
But cut back, but don't give up life.
Right.
That's right. Do something that you can do.
Yeah.
You absolutely cannot do away with chocolate.
There we go.
and wine.
A little. And of course, that's part of the Mediterranean diet. Okay, now really fast, quick answers. Here goes questions. Man 5'6", 155, 150 over 90. Put on medication, blood pressure down. What would he need to do to get off the medicine? Lose weight?
Lose weight, eat proper diet, and keep checking with your practitioner to see where your blood pressure is and see if you can lower that medicine. I don't take everybody right off the medicine like that. I get it down and then start weaning them off, and sometimes you can wean them all the way off.
Get him a gradual walking program too. Does lecithin help lower cholesterol?
Yes, it does. It does help with the actually.
What is lecithin?
It's a phytonutrient. It's a.
What do you get it in? What food?
Well, I have it right here in this book.
You
and
gotta buy the book, and
I
that's
wrote
the answer.
so much about it.
Okay.
Actually, it's good for the eyes. It is a retinoic acid.
Primarily it's a vitamin.
It is a vitamin for right. So it's I think it's a B vitamin, but it does help with the HDL, raising that and LDL lowering.
Isn't it in vegetables? Isn't it the stuff
I
we
think
get out of vegetables? If I remember right.
What's your take on supplements and vitamin supplements in general?
Quickly?
Yeah.
Glass of wine, 2 glasses of wine, good for men.
1 glass for women?
1 glass for women. But they found the ingredient that makes it all better.
What is that?
It's resveratrol. It was touted by Dr. Oz. Guess what? It's not such a great thing. I took it. I really felt miserable. But I would rather have a good source of protein, grass-fed buffalo, nice vegetables, nice fruit, and a glass of wine rather than take that pill.
Yep.
And I get headaches from wine, so I drink grape juice, and I make my own.
There you go. So my sense is, and my take-home is, I tell people vitamin D 2000, and we can talk about D in a minute, and then I also suggest a multiple vitamin if your diet is terrible, but B12 if there's a neurologic problem, and certainly if you're pregnant, folic acid. All right.
Go.
Explain good fats versus bad fats.
You just did that. I think we did.
Do high fiber diets make a difference in constipation? Amiel,
Yes.
what fibers do you like?
Let's see. Here's the problem here. I'm what do you call it? I don't drink milk. I can't drink milk. I do cereals and eat dry cereals without, and I like the kashis and some of those. Some of them are loaded with sugar, so you got to watch it.
Or that's yogurt.
And granolas, and that I can eat
cereal
with my hand, and that's how I add my fiber to my diet.
I like ground flaxseed.
And, yeah, perfect. With a friend like that, who needs an enema?
Right, and
Yeah, I like that.
So, all right. Elk Point, what cholesterol medicine would you recommend that doesn't cause leg pain? And I'll give you my answer, walking. The lipid-lowering statins will cause muscle ache many times, and so if that happens, don't take them.
Don't take it, but you might supplement with CoQ10. The statins work on there's CoQ10 is an enzyme in the muscles, and it's a powerful antioxidant, and it gets depleted with statins. So we do supplement them with that.
Right. And it's also dosage related. We're pushing the curve too far on some of these, and we're beyond the J curve in research because we're pushing it down too low, and we're using too much medication. So now you're starting to get into side effects. Let's modify your diet, get your cholesterol down, and lower your medications. There is the thing with the anti-cholesterol medications can take some of the inflammation out of the arteries. So there is some good there, but you don't need these massive doses if you get on a diet and lower your cholesterol with the diet and add the medicine at a lower dose for its benefits.
I would say that the science on lipid-lowering drugs, and I will speak different than most of the doctors, and I know you and I can disagree. You and I can disagree, but the lipid-lowering drugs, when you haven't had a heart attack, have extremely little, if any, difference in death rate or heart attacks. And if you've had a heart attack, there's an indication. But I'm not a big proponent of those drugs.
Unless you have metabolic syndrome, you're a diabetic, I think it's important. If you smoke, I think all these things are additive and accumulative for causing heart disease. So you better tackle that cholesterol if you can.
And you've got 30 seconds on smoking. What's happened in Pierre today?
Oh, really?
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah. 30 seconds. Okay. The hookah bill, the hookah smoke is actually smoke through a pipe and through a water pipe, and it goes and gets cooled down. It is very toxic. In 1 hour, which is a typical session for hookah, it's equivalent to about a pack of cigarettes. And I've had patients that came to me that came back from the emergency room because of their experience with the hookah.
So you promoted a hookah bill, and the end result was they've added an
addendum to it that might
open up
really
smoking
open up
again.
a can of worms. Yes, it did, unfortunately.
So the legislators are reintroducing the idea of people smoking in bars.
Well, if you have a liquor license, that you might be able to apply for a license like this. Yeah.
We've got to stop this.
Yes, thank you very much.
This is not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
So there may be people who disagree with me on that. But please, don't let them undo what's been done. Hey, from Sioux Falls, how do we guard ourselves from high fructose corn syrup? Don't drink it.
Read the labels.
Yeah.
Turn to every darn food you buy. You have to turn it over and read
the labels.
Right?
You know,
Whoa.
but more, I think, you know, just to disagree with it, it is just a calorie. It is just a simple carbohydrate. It is just a calorie. If you look at the chemical structure, it's got carbon, it's got hydrogen, it's got little oxygen thing with a couple double bars on it. It is just a calorie. And does that kill you? No, but the excess of calories does. And when it's a cheap calorie because you choose that Coca-Cola, which I love dearly, and it's got to be from sugar cane, I love dearly, or water, because Coke is cheaper, most people are going to choose the Coke, unfortunately. That's added calories, and that's what you worry about.
Right, so you disagree.
No, I agree with him, but I got my own take on it too. Is that it's just too much? There's just too much in the food. Yes,
it's everywhere.
Yeah, if you're going to have a pyramid, let's keep it down here where it belongs, not in everything.
Dump that, and what's more, it's that Lay's potato chips thing. You get started on it, and you can't stop. All right, Sioux Falls, a diabetic or on insulin wants to know how to lose weight. Her understanding is that insulin is supposed to make you gain weight. It does. Insulin does.
But it's because it's working. Yeah. It's lowering the blood sugar. You're utilizing that carbohydrate. And if you don't exercise, it'll store it for you.
Yeah.
It'll put it back and
it
make
drives
fat.
that fatty acid into the lipocyte. Now, the question is, metformin can help prevent that. I like to always have metformin on board.
Cheap.
And if you're gaining weight and you're having reactions, then you're on too much insulin. You got to think about it, because you'll end up in trouble. Any comment?
If you get the intrinsic evidence, as a diabetic, it is very hard to follow a diabetic that it takes all day watching everything. And let's put it this way, I haven't taken my medicine for 2 days because my blood sugar is normal. I keep testing myself, and I haven't taken my medicine for 2 days because of my diet at home, doing my own cooking and following it. So if you're on insulin, you're getting higher doses, you're gaining weight because of the higher doses of insulin, it's because you are not being totally self-sufficient in watching how much sugar you're putting in.
And there's some new drugs, you know, the Victoza and the Byetta and the Bydureon. I think they have huge benefit. And I'm not.
Levemir and Lantus are two long-acting insulins are rock stars. And
yeah, they're fabulous.
Fabulous.
They've made a huge difference.
Huge difference.
So we're doing better.
Genetically closer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jim, best diet for high blood pressure.
Do you remember the DASH diet?
Yes, talk about the DASH diet.
It was a high potassium diet. But you know what? People changed the way they ate. They lost weight. They lost their blood pressure.
It really.
They lost their blood pressure.
I don't think it was really the salt. I think it was the way they ate and the amount of.
They reduced their calories and they lost weight. Bingo.
That's the DASH diet.
That's the DASH diet.
And that was an old physician many years ago that I listened to, and he was retired at the time giving a lecture, and he said, man has been struggling with salt since he crawled out of the sea.
Yeah, that's a problem. You know, some places in Japan, they eat 10 times as much salt as we do, and we eat a lot. And there are places in the desert in the Sudan where they eat 100 times less than we do, and they do fine. We just don't know what we're doing with that, and I don't lean on salt as a major issue on lowering blood pressure. Do you?
You know, I really don't. I limit it.
Yeah, and that's culturally different too. Some cultures react more to it than others. Are more sensitive with the blood pressure with salt than others are.
That's right. Cultural issues again from you. That's important. Crooks, what do you suggest as a diet for someone who is lactose and fructose intolerant? And we've got like 30 seconds.
Lactose and fructose intolerant. Just eat everything but watch the lactose and fructose. You have to read the label. It's one of the struggles I have. It's a personal struggle. Yep. I read the label.
And you don't drink the milk.
But if you want to have like a wonderful Wiley's frozen custard, having that in your hand and eating that, take your Lactaid. It does help. It does help.
There you go.
I grew up on carnation milk because carnation milk, the curd is already broken, so you don't need
quite as much lactase.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll be back right after this.
Chug-a-lug, chug-a-lug. I make you wanna holler, hidey-ho. Chug-a-lug.
Getting checked for colon cancer ain't all that tough. A simple stool test may be all you need, but even drinking all that stuff for colonoscopy is nothing when the odds of getting the second most deadly cancer is 1 in 20. An easy at-home fit test or colonoscopy. Get screened, South Dakota.
We've long been on the path to understanding the proper diet that prevents heart attacks and strokes. Although most believe a lifestyle of moderate physical activity and avoidance of smoke is important in preventing atherosclerosis, there remains no answer to the question, which diet protects against heart attacks and stroke? For years, we thought it was a no-egg, low-fat, and more vegetarian diet, but in recent years, experts have started endorsing more meat. It began when a fad, low-carbohydrate weight loss diet became clearly more successful than the standard, more vegetarian diet. Reported in the medical journals, researchers found that those eating less bread, potatoes, and sweets lost more weight and felt better than those eating less meats and fats. Alas, after a year, both groups were equally unsuccessful in keeping the weight off, but we learned from it. Add to this what we've known for years about medical conditions of food intolerance. There's intolerance to lactose, which is the natural sugar of milk, and celiac disease, which is intolerance to gluten, a protein in many cereals, especially wheat, makes the bread stick and become bread. Anthropologists tell us these problems did not occur in hunter-gatherer societies until about 10,000 years ago, when farming developed and humanity became exposed to animal milk and wheat. It is also intriguing that studies of 20th century hunter-gatherers, whose diets are about 65% wild game meat and 35% gathered plant food, show them to be generally free of the signs and symptoms of cardiovascular disease. Could it be then that the eating habits of our ancestral pre-farming Paleolithic people living 2.5 million years ago until 10,000 years ago are guiding us along a path to prevent heart attacks and stroke in modern humans? Those who don't swallow this theory advise us that back then most people had to walk about an hour a day to survive, had smaller portions of food when they had food at all, and that most didn't live past 30 years of age anyway. These contrarians state that 500 generations of living with an agrarian diet has been enough to evolve tolerance to lactose and gluten, with only a few occasional throwbacks who doesn't tolerate our modern diet of milk and bread. I think the path to preventing a heart attack is not by avoiding meat and fat or even milk and bread, but rather by simply eating smaller portions and daily walking along any path. So, comments about that Paleolithic diet. Is it better than the Mediterranean diet?
Wow, I don't think I could top what you just said. And it all comes down to portions. And I do believe even if you're on the Mediterranean diet, you can get fat. You can destroy your cholesterol profile if this is all you do and this is all you eat and you don't exercise. You do need to hunt and gather like they did 1,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago. Gathering for us now is pushing a shopping cart and grabbing the potato chips and gathering all of these high saturated fat foods. So
I like a mile a day. I help people
exactly.
A mile a day.
Well, 10,000 steps is recommended.
Yeah.
2,000 steps is equal to a mile, so at least 5 miles. If you can get that done
in your whole day.
In your whole day.
Yep, that's it. Amiel.
Well, I'm kind of going along with the idea that not all foods are good for everybody. You kind of have to go back to your culture and go back to your ethnicity and your paleo stuff and find out what foods are for you and keep it down. You know, I mean, eat right and of course, starvation.
There you go. The less the better. Well, that brings us to the end of our show this evening. Darn. I sincerely thank our studio guest, Dr. Kevin Weiland with Rapid City Medical Center in Rapid City, and Amiel Redfish, PA from Arlington, for helping answer all the wonderful questions from our audience. It was the great one, Jackie Gleason, who noted, "The second day of a diet is always easier than the first. By the second day, you're off of it." Until next time, stay healthy out there, people.
Funding for On Call is provided in part by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On Call, starting its 11th year of opening doors for important medical information. And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota. Additional funding provided by Dakota Care, Regional Health, the Brookings Health System, Dr. Mark Bubak with Dakota Allergy and Asthma, the South Dakota American College of Physicians, and Swiftel Communications. Closed captioning for On Call is provided by the generous support of Avera, the Brookings Health System, and Fishback Financial Corporation.